Late Night with Chefs. Truffle Boy and Doug reporting for duty. And this week we have an amazing guest chef coming to you live from Las Vegas. Doug, introduce our guest chef of the evening, please.
With pleasure. Hello, everybody. As Truffle Boy said, thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us talk again. It is such a pleasure having all of you listen to us. And so, without further ado, our chef from Vegas tonight is none other than Chef Justin Kingsley Hall. Welcome, Chef, on Late Night with Chefs. How are you doing tonight?
I am wonderful, and thanks for having me, you guys. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, you are very welcome. Thank you for spending the time with us.
To have you on as well.
Definitely. So, Chef, as we said, you're coming to us out of Vegas. We'll kind of get started as we do. If you could give us a little bit of background into your, early culinary years. What were those, earliest memories of being in a kitchen?
Those earliest memories go back to, my mom being a catering manager at a hotel, and me being 5 years old and folding napkins and, putting sandwiches on trays. A lot of early, childhood labor laws not followed in the 80s with parents.
Whatever.
Mom
what childhood labor law?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But no, with my mom doing that for so long, there's always been some kind of restaurant or food industry influence in my life. But I think as I got to be about 12, I really started picking up cooking, because in our house, if you cooked dinner, you didn't have to do dishes. So a way out of chores. The other half of that being like my sisters and my mom, I swear to God, like every casserole had to have broccoli in it or some kind of terrible vegetable. And so I was trying to escape that. So I tried to figure out what I could cook and what I could, put on the table to avoid all that. So that kind of, started me into food. And then in high school, I had a friend whose mom kind of watched after all of us, made sure we stayed out of trouble. And she ran a catering company for a chef in the area. That was Central Coast of California.
Yeah, I love that you took the initiative. A lot of kids at that age, if they didn't like something that they were eating, they would just simply, throw a hissy fit about it or not eat it or, make life difficult. But you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to figure out what I can cook myself, so I don't have to eat this.
There was no hissy fit to be had. There was a lot of times as a kid that whole, like, you're going to sit at the table until you finish this, where like that went late into the evening. Or I think I definitely got some spankings off of not finishing vegetables. And so it was on to the next plan. Like, okay, I can't take too many beatings.
All right, this isn't working.
I can't sit at this table forever.
My ass is getting sore.
I got out of broccoli eating for a long time because the first President Bush had stated that he didn't like broccoli. And I think somebody like dropped a truck full of broccoli on like in front of the front gates of the White House back then. And I was like, if the president doesn't have to eat broccoli, I don't have to eat it. So that just forced me into a lot more cooked carrots.
I love it.
So it was like trying to be creative. I was like, I'm going to make my way out of this somehow. And so it was learning to cook. And then, it churned from asking for video games or some kind of normal thing like that to being like, hey, can I get a pizza stone? Or, I saw this pasta maker on TV, Ron Popeil and all them.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Can cook. I was like, anything to get that for Christmas, and I'll make something for dinner. So that kind of...
That was a win-win for your parents. They're like, hell yeah, sure.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, it worked out for everybody in the long run.
There you go.
And in your like early childhood, you brought up yen. Like, what were some of those, sources that you were kind of reaching out to and getting some of this knowledge, or was it more or less like you're getting it from your family or from outside sources, watching TV? What was around that time that really kind of inspired that, that culinary journey?
Honestly, I would catch these late night shows, definitely Yan Can Cook. That guy was just so vibrant and amazing. You know, there was all these different individuals that are on, and they kind of influenced, but it wasn't huge. It was just kind of more like, you know, fun, gimmicky, like showmanship. You know, they were doing a lot of like cool things, but for me, it wasn't something that was like, this is why I want to cook. It was just like seeing something like, ooh, I could cook with that. You know, it just made me know what I could ask for. But you know, my mom cooked as much as she could. She worked a lot, so there was definitely a lot of meals for us that were either, you know, put in a fridge or we figured out when we got home from school using a toaster oven. So for me, it was like this game of, you know, basically like my childhood was a Chopped basket coming home from school. So it was like open up the cupboards. I was like, all right, we have the following canned ingredients and a frozen chicken breast. You know, what can I make for after
I
school
love
lunch?
that.
I definitely can relate to that. It was like opening up the fridge and looking through the Tupperware containers of leftovers, and it was like, okay, what creative, you know, thing can we come up with for dinner for 5 people tonight?
I think people, you know, nowadays they forget about the term of the latchkey kid, that kid that had to walk home after school and their parents had to work till a certain time. And
Yep.
for so many, that seems like horrific that you would do that to a child, but it created a sense of survival.
Yeah.
That really, you know, it was everything. It was imagination of making some food. Me in the backyard, like repurposing 2x4s to build everything in the world that my brain could think up. Yeah, there was definitely some danger to it. There was a few times I definitely, you know, lucked out, but that led to a lot of my sense of adventure, but also my sense of like, you know, I can figure this out. I can get it done.
Creative thinking skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last of the latchkey kids. I like that.
Right. And then,
I
you
love
know,
that you brought that up because I relate to that 100%. My parents worked evenings, and I'd come home after school and be hungry and kind of make things
Figure it
like
out.
the
Yeah.
fact that you said what cans, I was just like, it's always starts with the can and then what we
Yeah.
got from the condiments, what we got from, okay, let's pull this thing, let's get it out. But I think the best thing is that there was no rules that you knowingly broke or didn't break or
Oh, yeah.
followed. So it really led to this, open creativity and kind of figuring it out as you go with, a lot of touch and feel and tasting. And I think that's the best way to learn because you immerse yourself in that experience.
For sure. I mean, there was nobody telling you that, oh, you can't put cheese with seafood and you can't
Right.
serve this with
You're
that.
like, this can of
no,
tuna
man.
fish and this cheese whiz, I got
This
this.
is literally all I have. How can I make it taste good?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think, that's definitely plays a part when I put certain flavors together and someone's like, I don't know if that's going to be okay. And I was like, neither do I, but like, who cares? If I taste it and it sucks, well, then I eat a bowl of something that tastes terrible, and
Right.
next
And
time
you move on.
I know. But yeah, it was a lot of situations like that. Like, I think about some of the great chefs that I've looked at and read about and their food inspiration stuff. Some of them have such great stories of like shucking oysters on a boat, uh, off, Brittany and all this stuff, and that's inspired them. In mine, I reference back a lot to. There's a couple different points growing up that we lived in hotel rooms, and my mom had an electric wok, an igloo cooler, and the sink area to kind of make things happen. And she created some super substantial meals for us and fed us and took care of us. And if she could do it out of that, then why couldn't I do it out of all of the abundance of sources that I have and ingredients?
Right.
So it's kind of like not a fear of like I can't make this happen. It's more of just looking at me like I can make this happen. I just got to figure it out. I need a second or two. But
definitely that level of
that,
resourcefulness that you have.
Yeah, so those were kind of the big things that I think still today help me out the most. Even with all the people I've met and stuff, all the things that I've seen and eaten, I still hold on to that bit that like, you can't tell me I can't put this together, wrong or right. You can't tell me that. I'm gonna try it. Why have the fear of not trying it and then just giving up before you get started? Nothing's gonna happen except taking a chance, and you're either right where you're already at, or you've succeeded and you're moving forward. So
Definitely. And, if you can, I know it's kind of like a on the spot example, but, for our listeners and for young culinarians and just foodies out there, what are some of those sort of like happy accidents where you find two flavor profiles that, either you're quote unquote breaking a rule, or, something that was out of the box thinking that you're just kind of like, let's put these together. Do you remember any specific, flavors or ingredients that you kind of just threw together on the whim and it either really worked or it really didn't?
it's hard to say exact ones. I know one of the big things for me over the years is always like some kind of sweet fruit and meat, grilled meats. Which in the beginning, I've dealt with a lot of chefs that are like, "What are you doing?" Or that doesn't work that way, which seems weird to me now because I've seen so much of it. But I grew up. My mom
Yeah.
used Stonewall Kitchen brand. They have this onion and garlic jam, and she used to put on tri-tip all the time. For me, that was just like this nice sweet jam, but a bit of garlic and onion. That was freaking delicious, So why couldn't I keep doing that with other stuff?
Yeah, I definitely can concur. Stone fruits and pork are kind of
Yeah,
something that's just like taken off, like you were saying. And, I had a traditional French chef in my kitchen as of late, and I put an escargot dish on the menu. But, I wasn't really a fan of the whole snail presentation. And, everyone does like garlic butter and white wine and parsley. So I did like a escargot toast with goat cheese and balsamic, and you would have thought that I just sent World War III into oblivion, like I was the worst human on earth. And I was like, chef, just taste it though. No, like wouldn't even taste it.
yeah.
And so you just kind of have those rules and guidelines that some people really hold steadfast to, and I think it's important to remember those, but I think you also have to be willing to kind of have that play and that creativity. Some of the
Well,
greats, they had that, and that's why they're where they're at now.
weirdly, we always talk about like trying to push things forward and do new things and be creative. Um, but there's so many instances where we try to do something different, and then somebody says, "Well, that's not how that's done. You can't do it that way," or that's not traditional. It's like, oh, if I wanted to do traditional, then I would open up a place that says Justin's Traditional Food. But that's not what
Right.
I'm interested in, And it's the
Right.
same with I run into a lot because I talk, with my restaurants, I usually talk about it being, modern American or new American cuisine. And everybody wants to say that you have to have this on the menu, you have to have a burger and you have to have this and these things. And
Right.
it's like, why do I have to? Like, other people are doing those things, but like, we can do a lot of other stuff as well. And, they're like, well, American restaurants have to have these things. I was like, I don't think
You
you
have to
understand
have
what,
some kind of crazy short rib pot roast on the menu,
yeah,
chef.
yeah, exactly. And it's like,
No, we
I
run
don't
into the
think you
same
guys
thing
know
here
what
in
America
Florida.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Oh,
giant melting pot at the end of the
yeah.
day. So, I do find myself kind of cooking that same food. This term, new American or modern or revised American, upscale American. Yeah, it's very much a melting pot. So there definitely should be a little bit more creative freedom within that context.
Well, people, and I do this in my training packets for the staff when we talk about New American. I explain to them that America is a melting pot, but when that term came along, that the people that coined it, I think they really focused on America being Irish and Italian, French and English and all this stuff. They weren't really interested in the indigenous cuisines, the cuisines brought over by the slaves. It wasn't what the neighborhoods are now, which are some of the largest Vietnamese communities in the world. Indian populations. You go up to Idaho, and there's a community of Ethiopians up there farming and at the at the farmers markets. So it's
Yeah.
like the American melting pot, allows you to cook anything if you just kind of open up and really look at what's going on in your neighborhoods. And we're able to source so much stuff these days that it's, it doesn't make sense to me why we're still trying to cook the same thing, and say that it's different than the person next door. It's like, just cook something different.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, it sort of gives us that rep when we talk about American chefs. And, I do the same thing. When I think of new American food, I think of, we have all these different ingredients. We have all these different cooking techniques that we've learned in school, which are French, German, Asian cooking techniques. And then we have an array of ingredients available to America because of, the different diverse communities that we have. So we kind of have the ability to like pick the best techniques and then pick the best ingredients to go with those. And, sometimes we blur a lot of lines, and I think that upsets a lot of different chefs. And, I can understand if, we're not paying homage to where we're getting those ingredients and those ideas from. But I think that that's what makes new American food, is being able to like take these really nice ingredients from one culture and take this awesome cooking technique from another culture and kind of throw them together, where in a traditional restaurant in that culture would never do something like that because it would be considered, sacrilegious.
Yeah, and there's moments when people go too far, and I think without an understanding of the ingredients or the cultures of where those foods comes from, it's easy to get lost and make some asinine plate.
Right.
I had a great boss when I lived in Florida who, he would explain that he would put dishes on the menu that had Thai inspiration. Nothing was like authentic Thai, and he would tell you that, but it was inspired by the friends that he had made over the years in the Thai community that he was really close to and cooked with constantly, and talked about art and, and history and all these different stuff. So he said, he's like, I feel like I have an ability to cook with those ingredients, with those intentions, because the amount of time and respect between me and the community. He goes, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I don't cook because it's like, what am I doing? Why am I using that ingredient? Because I have no understanding of its history.
Right.
For me, over the years, I've tried to stay true to that. Everywhere I've lived, I've had some kind of Vietnamese like friend community that I've spent a lot of time with. And my buddy Kai Vu here in Las Vegas, I mean, we've traveled together to go to New York to visit friends and help with a pop-up there. We went to Copenhagen together for a weekend with our wives to eat and talk, and we've cooked together several different times. And actually, him and I were paired up for a Las Vegas dinner at the James Beard House in New York, in
Wow.
crossing our cuisines and so stuff like that. But growing up in California, it was working with Mexican cooks in the kitchen and cooking food with them and family meal. Then I ended up in Florida, and it was a lot of Dominican and African and Caribbean chefs that you kind of hung out with all the time. When I was in the Army, there was a whole mix of people that you spent time with and chat about what they ate or what they grew up with, and going to somebody's house. So that like all that finds a place in my food. But I'm never going to say that like, oh, this is traditional this or this is Vietnamese. It's like, no, this is my friendships. This is my travels. That's why I use these ingredients. But I've read about them. I've tasted them. I've seen how people use them. And now I'm trying to figure out how to put them into my world.
And how you like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that. And I think, exactly that. I think that is the definition of, what new American food is, because, we are a giant melting pot. And, really at the end of the day, it's about showcasing the ingredients and the story behind them in the best way possible. And like you said, doing your due diligence as a chef and researching that ingredient, knowing how to use it, knowing, the story or the purpose behind why that ingredient was introduced to a culture or what it means to that culture, doing that is the key part in being able to fully utilize the ingredient.
Yeah.
So I know we got a little off track there, but getting back to your journey, as a chef, you're in high school, you're sort of asking mom and dad for the Christmas gifts from, Rachel Ray's cookbook to, Yin Can, whatever you're seeing late at night on QVC. Where is your story going from there?
I really loved working, I would do some serving for the catering company. I really loved being in the kitchen. And it was something my mom definitely wanted me to pursue. But I was dead set. From 5 years old, I knew I wanted to be in the Army, and I wanted to jump out of airplanes. I wanted to be in the infantry, and nothing ever swayed me from that. That was just the thing that I wanted to be in life. And from a young age, I just, was dead set that, I want to do what I'm passionate about, what I dream about. And so right after high school, I left for the Army, and I spent a few years in the Army. And then I got hurt in training, and they offered me a desk job, and I said that's not, I really loved being there, but it wasn't why I joined, and I couldn't see myself, sitting behind a desk and doing that for the rest of my life. I wanted to heal up. I wanted to see what I could do, so I got out, and ended up starting culinary school. I was like, I'm gonna go jump right into it, and I started culinary school in San Francisco, and I lasted about, I think, a month, and then realized that my injury was not going away. It wasn't some invisible thing I could lie about. So I had to spend about a year and a half, having surgery on my foot and getting a few things repaired and getting back to a point where I could stand up. But once I did that, I got right back into it with the chef that I worked for in high school. He asked me to come work in his restaurant, and I took the opportunity right away. And that was a really interesting kind of being thrown right into the fire kind of thing. It was like
and with
being
a
raised by my
brand new fit as well.
yeah. It was like being raised by my dad. It was kind of this, like, you're going to learn by doing it. And the expectation that is that you should already know how to do it. So I jumped into that kitchen, and I think it was like the third day of working there, all the chefs went outside to watch this big bicycle race go by, and they got trapped on the other side of the road by the bicyclist, and they weren't allowed to cross, and lunch service started and people started coming in, and I was literally by myself, and the servers rang some tickets in. I was like, I have no idea how any of this goes together. So I was like, bring me a menu, and then I need somebody to stand here and tell me what goes on the food. And I think that's why later on in life, I'm adamant that servers learn the menu. Because I was, one person's like, I think it's got tomato on it. It's definitely got this mayonnaise, but it could be that mayonnaise. And so that was my first start in the restaurant, and it was wild. And then I ended up, my girlfriend at the time, she'd asked me about, wanting to move, and she had just grown up in San Luis Obispo her whole life and lived in different parts of California and then in North Carolina. And so I said yes, and so we took off to the Tampa area. Went out there, found a job that I thought was going to be short term, and ended up staying there the entire 5.5 years that I was.
I hear that often.
Yeah, you're like, oh, just a couple months.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes.
It's so funny because it's like we never fully unpacked. We painted one wall and hung up a couple pictures, but it's always like, next year we're moving, and we just didn't. But I ended up going to culinary school, and she went to USF out there, and we were both like super packing in the units. I was doing like 18 to 22 credits, like a quarter, just trying to jump through school while working in the kitchen. And while I was there, I packed everything in. I was working in the restaurant, going to culinary school. I was part of a club at school, and we did a lot of different charity dinners and extra events with some of the chefs that worked there. So I was, in all these different environments around the Tampa area, cooking for high-end food to, barbecues on the beach, different environments. So that was incredible, kind of see the entire area. And then
do you think the mentality of the Army and having that experience, behind you kind of made you go more mature into this? Because like you're saying, you're utilizing a lot of what the school system has to offer, which, a lot of the younger cats that are just getting into this, kind of give themselves a disadvantage in the industry by not doing these charity dinners an extra thing, and working in the industry and kind of really, putting that stress level to where it needs to be to really be able to, hold foot in any kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to learn as much as possible, and I understood that being at school, you're not there 24/7. So there's only so much time they get with you, and even a great teacher can only teach you so much time in like a 3-hour class once a week or twice a week. So if you wanted your tools to be sharp, you had to keep working on them. You had to keep filling the toolbox. And so I took every opportunity. And I know a lot of people, they don't want to be taken advantage of, and they don't want to get to work constantly without any kind of compensation. And people will say, well, knowledge. Well, I get that, but knowledge is not paying my rent. So I get both sides.
Not in the immediate.
Yeah, and I was, I had a situation for myself that, GI Bill and different things that, I didn't always have to work 24/7, paid to make sure that all my bills were paid, so I'd kind of given that to myself. But I did, I took every opportunity I could because I wanted to be better. And I think the military wise, that was just kind of a constant drive. You just kind of pushed yourself, especially being like airborne infantry. It was just like, how hard could you push? And then once you're tired, could you push a little bit beyond that? So that was a mental fortitude thing that was just ingrained. That as the years go on, and I think what we talk about now with mental health and all that is like a double-edged sword again, where it's like you need to be mentally strong, but you don't need to like beat yourself all the time. And
Where's the line? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I always tell people they need to push themselves. They need to take opportunities when they come. But you have to be smart about your health and time. But yeah, get out there, go do events. If somebody will let you cook, go cook with them. It doesn't always have to be about money, and sometimes it does. But take the opportunities when they come up, because you're going to meet some incredible people that somewhere down the line, I catered, or I worked an event for the Super Bowl when it was in Tampa, and the NFL holds the Taste of the NFL the night before, and I worked with a chef from San Francisco because I grew up a San Francisco 49ers fan, and I wanted to work the chef and all this stuff. And that one night of working with him was years of benefit for like my sister going by his restaurant and having a great experience. There you go, buddy.
There you are.
I was just out there for their home games.
Oh my God.
Super, super cool. But they moved to the San Jose facility. It's not too far from San Francisco, but that was amazing to see everything. It was like my first football game watch like live, and from the views that I got to watch, it was pretty spectacular. So
first 49ers game I actually was able to be at and watch sucked because it was not a great time for the 49ers, and we went as a family because my cousin was drafted to the Colts. So I got to watch Peyton Manning absolutely beat the crap out of the Niners and had to cheer on my cousin, while at the same time, my first time ever watching my
your childhood team
just get picked apart. I was like, well, this was fun.
What a very interesting experience. You're like, your heart is just torn in two different places.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, so, back to Florida. So at that time, my girlfriend and I finished school the same exact week, and her last class was on a Monday. Mine was on a Wednesday, and we had the car packed and left Thursday morning for California. So we were there much longer than we expected to be, but when it was time, it was like, pack the car. I just burn everything that's left, and we will be out of here because I need out of this state.
I definitely can, understand that. I currently am staying in St. Pete, so, right across the bridge from Tampa. And, I've been here 2 years, and, it's definitely a beautiful town. I don't know if you've been back to the Tampa area. recently over the last 2 or 3 years, but it has just blown up, especially in St. Pete and the food scene here, and some of the chefs that we have, real talent, coming from, Bravo's Top Chef. We have Jeffrey Jew in the area. Rachel Bennett is in the area. A lot of people with some name behind them and some talent. And so it's definitely a food scene. It's just still also Florida at the same time.
Yeah,
So
it really, like, at the time, there's a couple great things around, but it was a struggle to find anything of great importance. Going around for Cuban food and stuff like that, like, all day long. It was
Right.
wonderful and
Right.
tapas. But there was just nothing to make me want to stay there to cook at the time. But I've definitely, over the years, talking to my friends back in Tampa, like, have heard and followed what's happening, and it's really exciting to see those trends. But it is, in the end of the day, it's still Florida, and I just didn't want to spend the next handful of years, trying to make other dishes while also making fried grouper and mango salsa. Like, it's like,
I love it. And, we had another Florida chef on, James Yoma, and he works in Central Florida. And, it's definitely, we kind of talked about people who come down to Florida. There's a very specific Florida experience that people are looking for. And, growing up in the Midwest and having many family vacations in Central Florida, at Destin, Florida, and Orlando,
yeah.
My earliest childhoods, I can attest to my parents seeking that Florida experience, and it's a very consistent, very safe image of a Florida experience. And with that comes a very specific type of food, which is fried grouper and, coconut shrimp and the
There
mango
you go.
chutney. And yeah, exactly. And so, I don't know if that will ever leave Florida, but I can attest that there's a lot of chefs trying to, play that into a culinary realm instead of it just being a sort of a pump and dump scheme. And, it's a challenging task. It's definitely a handful. I've had some success with it over here trying to elevate. But, it's definitely that sort of constant, traditional Florida experience versus,
Yeah.
something avant-garde.
Well, it just sucks because, everything has its place, and I'm fine with people wanting those things. And for a long time, like, living there, if I went to, like, a little, like, beach bar and grill or something, and they had, like, some kind of, buffalo super grouper sandwich, I just want, like, I'm gonna see what your super grouper sandwich is like compared to, some of the
Right.
others. So, and I still say my
Grouper
guilty.
Reuben.
Yeah, oh god. I still, my guilty pleasure, a couple times a year is chicken nuggets. Like, for me, it's solid. But
Right.
there's a time and place for that. But it shouldn't be everything, and it shouldn't be the
Right.
go-to as soon as you go somewhere. Like, Florida has access to so much great seafood, and I mean, the experience of living in Florida was like when scallop season would come along. Like, people that never went near the ocean or any body of water all year long, as soon as scallop season came out, everybody's like, "Yeah, I'm going out in the boat. I got 10-gallon buckets. I'm bringing up all the scallops possible, and they're doing all this stuff." Like, that. That was so interesting to me that was a thing,
Right.
and
Right.
and it's right out your back your back door. I literally lived on a canal in Dunedin, Florida, like a canal going out to the
A lot of
Gulf.
great breweries in Dunedin.
Oh, Dunedin Brewery. I happened along that place just by accident one day, and my girlfriend and I every Sunday would ride our bicycles down, get fish tacos, liter of beer, and then, like, make our way home.
There you go. Grouper fish tacos, though, right?
Yeah, yeah. But it was like, you have all this stuff that you could try and do greater things with and highlight, but but people are so often like, "Well, I'm in Florida and I should get this," and it's like, but should you really? Like,
Right.
And I love how you
one
mentioned
chance.
that the fishermen know, like, that there's a scallop season. So, like, that's very interesting because, like, most restaurants would just carry grouper year round. And most of the time it's probably not even from, Florida. It's coming
Well,
from
and a lot of
where.
times it wasn't grouper at all. I mean, when I moved there, that was like part of the big scandal at the time was
Yep.
like,
Yep.
scallops were like hole punched stingray wings. and grouper was being faked out for sea bass and stuff. It was like a whole huge just. I didn't understand because I just like moved there, and they're like, "Whoa,
Yeah,
truth in
exactly.
many
Right. I guess it's true to Doug's saying is that there's this whole Florida experience. So like,
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's-
whether or not it's grouper, you're getting a grouper sandwich. And that's what
When
you're
I have
having.
friends talk about the Florida man stuff and they see it on Instagram or some kind of meme, I'm always like, it's a real thing, guys. It's a funky place.
It's any Florida man story is legit 100% probably true. And I moved here from Chicago about 5 years ago, and I've been in Florida for about 5 years. First on the Central Florida for a couple months, and then the East Coast for 2 years, and now on the West Coast for 2 years. And Florida is just Florida. I've been on all the coasts, and I spent a little bit of time in Miami, and I think there's definitely a culinary scene happening down in Miami. You have, Brad Kilgore and Thomas Keller has his restaurant down there. And so Miami definitely has some really cool stuff. And I heard Dan Peretta is actually going down to Miami as well.
I didn't hear that, but also you're forgetting Jose Andreas's Bazaar restaurant at the
That's right.
SLS Hotel, which is like my favorite go-to restaurant in Miami.
So Miami definitely has some stuff going on, but it's
not
still
on the Miami Strip.
Right.
On the Miami Strip, they're selling the experience, the paellas and the I don't even know how many ounce margaritas, but
but that's the same as Las Vegas. Like, most of the experiences on the Strip are purchased from other cities. They're bringing experiences here. It's not a Nevada, it's not a Las Vegas like born experience, and they're most of the time trying to sell you on the lights and the glamour, and and the yard long margaritas are so much part of it, or the big prices.
They come with a strap. You're literally carrying it with a strap. I mean, I'm just like walking around. I'm like, all right, like.
Yeah,
they're pretty solid.
But
I mean, in
24
terms of
ounces
alcohol
in that glass. Yeah, there's 24 ounces in the glass, but it fits around your body.
Yeah, but I mean, but like Miami, especially in the past handful of years, you start making it out to the neighborhoods, and you're seeing a lot of really cool things happen. And that's the same with St. Pete, all that area. Things are coming along, but for me, it wasn't happening fast enough while I was there. So I was like, I gotta get back home to California. I was like, I wanted to be in the Central Coast. I wanted to get back there, and I did. And it was a very short time back. My girlfriend and I broke up. I wanted to get out of the small town because I just needed space, and I was trying to decide between Las Vegas and Portland. I had friends in both, and I just figured, well, Las Vegas would be a quick, easy move. It would be good to put it on my resume. At least I could say I worked in Las Vegas. But I'll be there a year, and then I'm gone. And sure enough, like I moved out here, and I got a job at a place called Comme Ça, which was a higher end French brasserie in the Cosmopolitan Hotel, and it was gorgeous, greatest, most beautiful restaurant I had worked in yet. The excellence of cuisine, the ingredients were far beyond what I was used to, and when I interviewed with who is now one of my best friends, Brian Howard, we talked about the fact that I was a sous chef, level person and everything. And he's like, well, you haven't worked in this environment. And he's like, and all I have is, room for somebody to do French fries and hot sides. And I said, I've never worked in this volume. I want to see this. I want to do this. So I'll come and do it. And I started in that position for a few weeks, and somebody was out sick on fish. So I started helping out on Fish Station. A few weeks later, I was solidly on Fish Station. And then I think it was about 7 months into being in Vegas, Brian came up to me and said, "Hey, you don't like Vegas, do you?" And I said, "No." I was like, I don't plan to be here forever. And he goes, "Well, how would you like to apply to be the exec sous chef of Comme Ça West Hollywood?" So I told him I was really interested. Didn't know what the restaurant looked like or anything, and I knew there was some difference in the cuisine. So a couple days later, after, I think I talked to him on a Wednesday night, and Saturday I asked him to make dinner reservations for me. And Sunday on my day off, I drove out to West Hollywood and had dinner, looked at the restaurant, met the people, and ended up applying and then moved out there. So it was, it was a quick 9 months in Vegas, being introduced to a lot. It's really seeing what it was like cooking on the Strip and the kind of experience people get. And then I was out in West Hollywood.
Cosmopolitan's always, and still to this day carries, very high level of cuisine and food and chefs and, all those products that we all as chefs love. So that's, I think you got an awesome experience to, start off at the Cosmopolitan and kind of get your foot in the industry in that way in terms of like high volume. And that's really cool.
Mean, for the kind of cuisine we were doing, on a Saturday night, we do 500-600 covers, and you're trying to put small brunoise components on a dish. Fish Station just had 9 pans of brunoise, everywhere. It was insane. But I looked at it and I did. I got offered a chance to either work at Spago and Bouchon, a couple other restaurants, and my conversation with Brian was just that if you want to learn, we'll teach you things. If you want to put the time in, it doesn't matter if you're a dishwasher or whoever, you got an idea, bring it to me and we'll talk. And he lived up to that, and we did. I came in a few hours before my shift each day to kind of get my station ready, just so I could work on the nightly special and be part of it and see what was going on. And because Wednesday night we did offal, and Friday was fish specials, and Thursdays was scallops and all these things. So every special.
And I just want to make like a gesture on the point that you made, is that you would come in a couple hours early to set your station up so that you could do things that weren't in your job description, so that you could move and progress ahead. And that really sets the tone between you and the chef, and how much the chef's gonna be willing to put out on the table, and how much he's willing to really take you and mentor you.
He's willing to give to you.
But it was never like, and here's the hard point, is that it was never an expectation that I had to do that. It was something that I wanted to do for myself. So when I look at cooks now and stuff, and they want to learn, it's my responsibility that, if they work in a certain amount of hours, that I should teach them. I should share things with them. But like, depend on how much you want to learn, how much you want to do. Like, if you can't get yourself ready and you can't do this, then you're not going to free yourself up for other time. And then also, you're only going to be able to have this much time, in a day to really go over it. So, if you want to sacrifice some time, I'll sacrifice some of my time too. You want me to come in early? You want me to do some things? I'll figure it out and share that responsibility with you. But like, there has to be an equal kind of give and take to it. So no, it was a chance to learn and play with things and stuff that there would not be other opportunity unless I did that. But it wasn't like, I was only given an hour to set up my station, and I need to come in early just so I could even do that. And, this is unfair. It wasn't a situation like that. I had plenty of time to set up my station, but I was like, I wanted to like get it all done so I didn't have to think about it, and I could have all this time to like look at the block and draw things out and play with it. So I think that's an important difference in a lot of situations in some other kitchens where it's like, if you want to learn, then you need to work for free. It's like, no, I mean, there's a lot of gray area there.
And I think those days are a little bit behind us at this point, right? With the whole unions and
definitely,
and the whole staging and paid and everything like that. I mean, I guess I definitely think it still exists in Europe. And I was just having an interesting conversation that, people in Spain, they get free culinary school. So you have so many people coming out of this free culinary school that you really have to, hustle and shine to kind of get that position.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, like this is literally what we're missing. If they made free culinary school right now, 2-year program, fuck it, do a expedited 8 months program. Just teach them
Might help with all the labor
essentials.
shortages.
Not even
Yeah.
forget the 5 mother sauces, but just get them on the essentials.
Yeah.
I think
Just
that's
how
gonna
to
put
small
a little
dice.
bit more competition and stuff. And I think a lot of the people, especially we haven't even got to that subject yet, but COVID driving a lot of people and forcing people to switch positions or take some thought to it and being like, I don't want to work and slave 80 hours a week in front of this stove and this and that, and you're dealing with food critics and you're the electrician, plumber, blah 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 blah. So much things fall on your head that it's
You literally just explained my entire day today.
it was enough time for people to be like, hold on a minute, who's getting played here? Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you work as much as we do, or you're trying to work 2 jobs to, pay your bills, you get in a fog, and it's hard to see what's happening to you. It's hard to even really feel the pain that your body's going through. And what COVID did was, with so many of the lockdowns and everything, it gave people enough time to sit and be like, holy shit, my body hurts, or my brain is not okay. And I don't like this feeling, and rethink, like, okay, do I want to go back into this job, and whatever job it was, cooking or not, but do I want to go back into this job? And if I do, how am I going to do it? What's my exit plan? What's my future look like? And then for other people, it gave them the opportunity to be like, 8 years ago, I was supposed to go back to school, or I was supposed to become an EMT. I was supposed to do this. I was supposed to do something else with my life, and I just couldn't because I was surviving. So that changed a lot. It's conversations that went on in my head over the past year too, and I had friends that saw resumes of really great chefs looking for line cook positions too, and they're like, "Well, what's going on?" And they're like, I just really liked being a dad. I like spending time with my family. I like doing this. So I'm not looking for all the responsibility. I don't want to do all that.
Right. Just give me the 18 an hour and we'll call it a day. Yeah.
Yeah, just my 5 menu items. I'll set my station up.
Exactly.
No,
you see it, and like you said, that in Florida, it felt like we had maybe 2 days off, but for the rest of the world, the 6 months, 7 months of looking back and reflecting, I think you're exactly right. I think a lot of people started to realize where their quality of life has sort of slipped and where they kind of lost themselves and lost that balance. And so, labor shortages are vast among the entire country right now in a lot of different industries, but food and beverage specifically, we're seeing it heavily. No one is staffed up. And I think you're right. Going back to the days of staging, I agree. I've asked around to do stage here, stage there. Some places won't do it just for fear of, legality against them. And so, hopefully, as we get on the topic of COVID, it'll start to maybe open people's eyes to the sacrifices that industry workers made to, put that, grouper with mango salsa on the plate. Because I think the sacrifices definitely went unnoticed and untalked about for a very long time prior.
Yeah. I talked to some young cooks not long ago. We were talking about some award somebody got or for chef, and they're like, yeah, but that chef's not even like the one cooking the food and blah. And I was like, well, yeah, he came up with the idea, or he created the situation where people could flourish. I was like, but we always work in this deficit because at some point we worked for somebody really hard that created awards for them, and then they did the same. Till you reach this point where, like, now the workers are working for you to uplift what you're doing, then you're going to get the awards. And it's this weird thing, that not everybody kind of grasps, but it's like, you're the captain of the ship. So you're the one that's looked at when things go right. But they also miss out on the fact that when the bad Yelp comes through and someone's like, your pasta sucks, you should kill yourself. Like, the cook isn't going home thinking about that. They're not waking up the next morning being like, are they right?
The oven doesn't work. You go,
oh, that's chef's recipe.
Chef, the oven doesn't work.
Yeah.
Chef, the pasta machine's not heating up properly. Chef, we don't got broccoli in house.
I told a cook, I was like, you guys see the world from your station. Just like a lot of people in life, you see the world from your perspective, and it's nice for you. It may be stressful at times, and you get pissed off, but when you go home, you get to bitch, and you get to crack open a beer, put your feet up, and
The
you don't have
station's
to
back at the
you don't have to
restaurant.
think.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about it. All the rest of us were like, God, I hope the refrigeration doesn't go out tonight. That outlet keeps popping. What if it goes tonight? I'm going to lose product. Is the restaurant going to flood again? You know, these
Is
are
the
all.
produce guy going to send me moldy mushrooms for the second time in a row?
Is he going to show up on time? Like right now, that's the thing, is like the wave of deliveries coming in, either right on time or 4 hours late. It's like, they're like, are we going to have product today? I was like, I hope so. I really.
I ordered it. I always say that. I ordered it. I don't know.
We just, just opened up this new spot, peyote, and the conversation, because we 86'd a couple things a couple nights, and then like, well, so we're gonna have this? I was like, yes, I want to, but when I wake up in the morning and someone's like, oh, a hurricane changed everything, so that fish won't be coming, or the drought in this part of the country has screwed us, and you won't be getting those cases today. I'm like, well, could we order ahead? I was like, yeah, I could order ahead and it could all go bad. That's one way to
Right.
go with it. Or I don't know how big you think my walk-in is, but no, I can't just store cases of
Yeah. A
everything.
pallet of Brussels sprouts is not going to just sit in the reach-in very well.
Yeah. So these are, these are the things that we constantly think about as our day goes on, whether it's our day off or it's the middle of the night. These are the stresses. So
Yeah, no, 100%. And, I like that sort of iteration. I've always tried to be the best sous chef that I can be, because I feel like being a sous chef, that saying of like, when you have a kid, if you have a shitty kid, it's because you were a shitty kid. The same thing with like a sous chef. Like a lot of the sous chefs that I've talked to or have been sous chefs, so like when you're a sous chef, be a good sous chef, because there is such a thing as like sous chef karma. And when you're a chef and you have bad sous chefs, it just makes it for a whole hell of a lot harder experience. So it's definitely, you got to
I think
pay
it
it forward.
starts from the bottom, right? When you're even at a dishwasher position, you should be the best dishwasher ever, so that you can teach somebody else how to be the best dishwasher ever, and then be the best prep cook ever. And like, prep cooks literally see everything. And if you have an amazing prep cook, he'll be like, hey chef, make sure to order this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
And then you'll walk through your day and you'll be like, when you're ordering, you're like, oh, what did he say? Oh, okay, good. And you that trust, that bond, it really is a family thing. And a lot of people, like you said, see it from their own little perspective. Like, oh, Fry Station didn't get their fries for the day, so sucks for them.
Yeah. Or they're
Like
or they're
I
always
got
like, wow, this
I got
person
mine
sucks.
reset.
Like, how hard is it to remember to order fries? Like,
Yeah.
well, you know what happened with my day?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Do you know how many other things besides ordering the French fries I had to deal with? 100%. So, chef, we kind of talked a little bit about it, but coming up into your COVID, time frame, I think you said you were a chef in Vegas during COVID?
yeah, so I was working on the opening of Main Street Provisions, and we were looking at opening in March of 2020. Is that right? Is that where we're at? And through a combination of things with contractor and everything, and COVID hitting, it suddenly started putting us all off, and it was one of those weird experiences that happened everywhere. It's either, as a chef or a culinary person, you either weren't working at all, or you were working harder than you've ever worked. And you didn't know, if you weren't working at all, you didn't know really how you could help out, because you talk to some people and they're like, yeah, I'm not busy enough that I can afford to get anybody else, or I don't have time, but I'm so busy I can't do anything else. And nobody knew what was going to be going on, and we were still trying to build the restaurant and move forward. And it was looking at like, how is this all going to be possible? How are we going to find personnel, or when could we even open? And I wrote 4 different menus. One was kind of a ghost kitchen menu. Then there was a couple just drive up, takeout menus. Then there was the menu for us opening at 25% occupancy to full occupancy, and we were, doing packages, setting up these cooking lessons and doing YouTube videos for people at home. So, you could buy a ticket and come get a basket of ingredients and then watch us cook it at home, and we gave you a recipe. So there was all those things going on. So everybody got super creative.
So many pivots, yeah.
A friend of mine, Jolene Menina, she runs a company called secretburger.com, and the whole idea was to create off-menu specials that you could kind of, for the chefs, it was easier because we were selling tickets before the event at your own restaurant, and so you knew exactly that you had to make 20 specials for that night. So you weren't wasting product, you were ordering what you needed. So she kind of used that platform online to offer chefs that ability, like, hey, I've got this whole roasted chicken dinner. How many of you want to buy it? And she would put it out there, market it. And then, we'd create this YouTube channel. And we do this whole cooking lesson. So I know for one restaurant in town that she was helping, I think they did 10,000 in sales over a few weeks, for
Wow.
weren't going to exist, and help them keep some people employed and keep the doors going a little bit. I started a charity event 5 years ago with I think it was about 5 years ago with my buddy Lee Flint, called Whiskey in the Wilderness, and we were supposed to do it in March, and we saw the writing on the wall and realized it was canceled, but we didn't want to give up on people having a chance to connect with the community, so we did it virtually. So we had people come and either pick up ready to go takeout boxes or the meals that they could cook at home. And people would come get the food, and then they would watch an Instagram live interview with the chefs and be able to ask questions. And we used, Instagram live to auction off a painting from a local artist to raise money for charity. So we were still kind of trying to keep life moving, and using technology to keep it happening, to keep us all connected, because that was Las Vegas community, especially culinary community, is really tight. We do a lot of things together, and suddenly we weren't seeing each other. We weren't going to each other's restaurants or sitting at the bar with one another. So it became a wild experience, but I was so proud of knowing people that, took it and ran with it and created every opportunity they could to keep their business viable, to keep people employed, and to keep the community fed. A lot of people just making food to feed people that were hungry. We had one woman, Katinka, that I know. She did this 24 meals, and basically they'd drop a bunch of ingredients at your house, and we made 24 to-go boxes and send them out into the community to whoever needed food. And then we'd pass that on to the next chef and the next chef. And she served hundreds of people over months doing that.
That's beautiful. And I think, getting back to that, at the end of the day, food is to feed people. It is nourishment. Whatever spin, whatever crazy thing we do to it, we are eating, for subsistence. And so getting back to the origins of food, I think, is important for us to do from time to time as chefs, because I think we can get wrapped up in the pretentious ways that we're serving, chicken or serving beef. But at the end of the day, people are eating it for enjoyment. They're eating it for fulfillment, for substance. And so, being able to bring that into a community where you actually, can see the effects of feeding others, I think there's probably something very special that, awesome that you guys are able to do that during such tough times.
There was one meal that I remember specifically because it went to an elderly man with dementia, and it was this braised beef dish that I did, this beef daub, and the daughter sent back an email. Father had dementia and been rough trying to get him to eat lately, and he's been really depressed, and that just kind of woke him up for the day, and he smiled and he ate the whole thing. It was an incredible experience for her, that she talked about. And for me, that's the absolute pinnacle of me working in what I do. That creating that moment, beyond an award or a picture somewhere or any kind of acknowledgement for what I do, that was the coolest thing. And in that point in the year, that really brought me out of some darkness too.
Yeah.
We all want to make food look good and taste good, but always the reason that I've cooked is because I felt like food created an opportunity to get people around a table, especially if you were strangers, different parties and weddings and things like that. Food was like enough of a catalyst to just get people to talk about something. And if somebody came into the restaurant and they're like, we need to be out in 45 minutes, and they just kind of got lost in their conversation, and enjoyed a lot of food and drink together, and we're there for a couple hours, that's where I won. That's me checking off the box of doing what I'm supposed to do in my career.
100%, providing that experience. And, kind of getting into that, I wanted to ask you, some of the other Vegas chefs that we've interviewed, Vegas in general is very much kind of a showmanship, city. And so do you kind of feel the need sometimes to bring that into your food, at Main Street Provisions or Peyote, this, kind of over the top display of experience as well?
No, I think the Vegas Strip is that. But I think a lot of us are trying to show people that Vegas itself is not that. It's much more than just neon lights. I cook a menu to try and be different than the rest of the city. You can go get these giant pieces of meat and all these different things and caviar all over stuff. And I love it and I partake in it and stuff. But that's not what we're about. It's not what a restaurant's about. And that's not the entirety of Vegas. When I first moved here, my roommate, who's now my wife, she took me hiking. I was like, I grew up in California and going to Yosemite. Like, where'd you take me hiking? And we went up to Mount Charleston. And it was pine trees and steep peaks and everything. And it was this incredible experience. And I just didn't know that existed around Las Vegas. And we started driving around more, seeing a few more things, and getting to understand that there's a lot to the geography. Then it was learning that there's a lot to the people. So even when I started my charity event, we hold it in a horse pasture out near the Red Rocks. And the point of it being that, like, we all spend our time trapped in hotels and resorts and different venues cooking and doing all this stuff. And we're missing out on the fact that there's a beautiful surrounding that we could be part of. So us cooking in the neighborhoods is not trying to keep that mentality going. And when we did the dinner at James Beard House, it was called Beyond the Neon. And I think that was perfect because it was like,
I like that.
We're not trying to be New York. We're not trying to be San Francisco. We're not trying to be, we're not trying to be the Las Vegas Strip. We're trying to create restaurants that look like they have belonged here for decades and will be here for decades. We're trying to create experiences that you come in and understand that you're getting great ingredients, that it's thoughtful, and that it's unique. And so when you come to Vegas and eat with us, you're not going to some other city and then running into that same restaurant, So no, I don't think there's a need to feel like we have to glitz anything up, or do something extreme. And I think a lot of people are understanding that, they're just coming to us because they want to experience a Las Vegas neighborhood. The Arts District of Las Vegas is perfectly that, because Vegas doesn't really have walking neighborhoods at all. It doesn't have these little boroughs or anything. And the Arts District has now become this, 10-block radius area that people can come to, and you can eat, drink, shop, and come back the next day and have a whole new experience.
That's awesome. Next time we're out there, I haven't got to check out the Art District.
No.
I did check a little bit of the Chinatown or Asian town, so to speak, because it is, multicultural, and that was really phenomenal to see. And we had a phenomenal time at this all-you-can-eat Korean barbecue spot, and we were one more or less local, right? Most of the chefs are from other places that, around or whatever, but
Yeah.
most of them are there for a couple years or been there
And
for
then
a
fall in
decade
love
or
with it.
whatnot.
Yeah.
And just stay. And, it is a beautiful thing to have so much entertainment or so many options, right? There's really nothing in Vegas that you can't have within, your fingertips. But
No,
I do.
that's very true, and it's a big benefit that I take part in and stuff. It's nice that I can go down the street from my house, um, and have some amazing street tacos down East Charleston. I can go to Chinatown and have some beautiful ramens and pho, or I can go have a platter of caviar and all the accoutrement and everything you want, and some bottle of champagne, just by driving a few blocks. So it's cool to have all that for sure, but it's for sure different for every neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, Chef, before we let you go and kind of wrap up, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but, for any of our viewers or followers out there that kind of want to get in touch with you as you kind of, continue on this journey of, claiming Vegas food identity, what's the best way to kind of see what you're doing? Is there Instagram that works for you?
Really, my Instagram is where I'm most active. The J Kingsley Hall. Um, you know, Pretty much everything I'm doing, I post on that, and then it kind of gets secondary off to Facebook. And there's always something happening with us in the community. They can find me at Main Street Provisions in the Arts District or Peyote. I have Whiskey in the Wilderness every year, and then there's usually some kind of thing of us cooking together, different chefs and stuff. So there's always pop-ups that you can find out about that we love. We all work really hard. We also enjoy like spending our off time together.
That's
So,
awesome.
when is your next Whiskey in the Wilderness event? Because for those of you that are listening that haven't checked it out already, I love the name, but the idea of coming back to primitive cooking using fire in the wilderness, like you said, it really sort of embodies that. But when's your next event coming?
It was supposed to be this November or December. Um, and it's usually in March, and we had pushed it to see when festivals could start again, and kind of feeling it all out. And right now, we planned for November and December again, but it's just kind of hard right now because everybody's kind of short on labor, um, and doing events is kind of pulling. And the idea of Whiskey in the Wilderness was not to create an event to stress us out. It's very much a time where chefs get to have a good time as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at it. It might end up being in the beginning of 2022, but try to keep it in the colder months. The idea always was that I wanted people to drink whiskey and have to sit around a fire, and if it's cold outside, you're more likely to do that.
Yeah, 104-degree desert heat doesn't really scream fire, does it?
Yeah. And then overnight, it drops to like 6
Right.
degrees and 70-mile-an-hour winds here. But so
Crazy.
we're keeping that one. We're keeping it moving, but it's definitely coming back. So I don't want people to think that that's changing.
Beautiful. Well, we definitely will stay in touch with that, and me and Vlad are definitely gonna try and make our way out there. Next time we're out there, we will definitely come see the Arts District of Vegas. Thank you so much, Chef, for kind of sharing your journey with us, also sharing the Vegas food identity. It's awesome to hear that you guys are kind of, coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, and creating your own term and your own, identity of food. It's important that, we as chefs are able to kind of, embrace what we want to do and, share some of ourselves with our guests.
For sure. I really appreciate the time. I know there's other questions and stuff you guys had. We kind of got all over the place, but I'm really thankful for my time. And if anybody has any questions, go ahead and reach out. I'm always here to chat.
Please do, guys. As always, make sure to follow, like, subscribe. Let's show Chef Justin some love on the gram. And like you said, Justin, we're definitely going to be bringing you back, getting a little bit more thorough swept through that, journey that you've had, because it's been a plethora of amazing things that we've heard. And I just love the way that you put things in perspective, and, that experience really showcases in the way you talk and what you're all about. So we love nothing more than chefs like you, and we need more of us, and hustlers out there that keep pushing things forward, keep being different, keep thinking outside the box, but still being mindful of our surroundings and really being true to what is around and what is available and what's good for us. And at the end of the day, it looks like you are having fun with your food, and we just love seeing nothing but that.
Well, good, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good
Thank you,
evening.
Chef. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, checking us out.